Hey, what is going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to the next video in the Blender Building a House mini-series, we'll call it. Alrighty, so picking up where we left off last time, we have our house here. We laid out windows, railing, porch, steps, that sort of thing. What do we want to start on today? I guess let's get some trim done. That would probably be my next step. Let's have a look at the image here. And ooh, what happened there? Every once in a while, I'll run into this, and it's something that I did. It's not the program. Inadvertently, maybe I scaled something, but my image, you can see, is bigger than my house, or my house is smaller than the image. I'm not quite sure, but that's okay because we have everything laid out, and that's all we really needed the image for, right? We didn't need it for anything else. It's just reference at this point. We can look at it and see how things should go. But everything is where it needs to be. So we're okay without the image at this point, I would think. All right, so let's get started on, we're going to go into face select here. The other thing is I may start moving a little bit faster. So explaining pushing G to grab or all those sorts of things. I'm probably going to just speed that part up a little bit. So by now you should be pretty well versed in what buttons do what and how to do certain things. If I feel like it's something that, you haven't come across yet, I'll certainly explain it. But at some point you should have either watched part of, the Blender series or on your own learn some aspects of Blender that I don't need to explain every little thing. All right. Just for the sake of speeding things up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go into face select, and we're going to try, oops, let me hit shift instead of caps lock. Let me turn my caps lock back off. I do that a lot, by the way. I'm going to grab everything that needs trim, right? So every window, every door, and we're going to do this all at one shot. All right, so now that I have all those picked, I am going to eye for inset. All right, and I'm just going to eyeball it. And I'm going to roll that into right about, I guess there. Okay. All right. Now, normally what I would do, I have to address the bottoms of both of these doors, the garage door and the van door here, because I do not want this bottom piece of trim. Now, if it wasn't for those, if I was just doing the windows, I would select outer. Okay. Because the next thing I'm going to do is extrude this trim work here. But I do have some work to do on those doors, so I can't do that in this instance. But keep that in mind because that's something very, it's helpful. It's a very helpful tool to have there to just select outer. This way you don't have to go through and check every single one, which I'm going to have to do in a minute here. But let's pull this down. I'm going to use a knife tool, and I'm going to pull that along the Z-axis. All right. We'll enter that. And then I am just going to dissolve these lines down here. Okay, see what I mean? I don't want that bottom piece of trim on the door there. That's not really going to help me out too much. Look kind of weird, kind of awkward. Although I think I had one build where I did keep it there. I think it was like a step of some sort and worked out pretty good. Alrighty, right click, dissolve. Now, while I'm at it, some of these lines here can actually go because those are going to translate into the trim when I extrude it outwards. That line will come with it. All right, and I have this, see this one here, rid of that. All right, and let's get rid of, oops, I'm going to knife tool first before I start deleting things. All right, Z-axis, on down, okay. All right, like that, okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of those out a little bit. And we're going to do this all in one shot, right? Because it's a lot easier than doing it. Obviously, it's a lot easier than doing it one window at a time. I've done that, and I still do in some respects. It depends, or in some circumstances, it depends what the scenario is, right? Sometimes it calls for it, sometimes it don't. The only pain in the butt is having to go through here and select every single one of these pieces of trim by hand, but that's about the worst of it. So it's not so bad. All right. So let's get these selected. Oops, I think I just goofed up. The nice thing about Blender here is being able to Control Z, right, and go just step back a few steps, which not every program is like that. Sometimes if you mess up, that's it. You got to start all over. But this, it's nice. If I goof up, like say on the last selection, that would stink to have to go through and select every single one all over again. But in this case, it's not bad. Just Control Z and go back to the state that I was previously. All right. So we have all these selected. Now, obviously, I can't just use E to extrude, which if it was just this front face, I would do that, right? If it was just the front of the house, because then I could pull it, in this direction here. Now, I was going to use my pen, but I'm not going to get into all that right now. So yeah, I can pull it in this direction. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, right, for me, it's right click F. And we just did this, and I think in the last video, when you right click, we are going to extrude faces along normals, right? So with every one of these normals here, it's going to extrude it in the direction that it's facing, right? So every one of these windows, these normals are going to be facing a different direction. So that's how we're able to extrude all of them at the same time, right? Without having to worry about, things, heading in a different direction, which if you tried right now, if you tried to just extrude, right, it would extrude everything in the same direction. It's not even working for me. All right, let me back up there a second and see. I don't want it to do anything. All right. All right, so let's extrude faces along normals. Now what I'll do is I'll get myself like on an edge here just so I can see how far I'm pulling this out. All right. And I'll hold shift because I want to, and I guess right there looks good. All right. There you go. See that? And we pulled out every window at one time. Easy peasy, right? Nothing to it. Okay, so with the garage door here, let's start with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, and I'm going to E to extrude, and I'm going to pull it in just a little bit, like so. Now, what I could have done, let me undo that, is I could have went down here to extrude manifold, right, and pulled that in and go to extrude manifold. And then when I pull this in here, oh no, it still did it. It's probably because I have the bottom of the house there. Extrude manifold in some circumstances you can use to not have this bottom piece here. Let me get up here into like this piece right here. All right. I could delete that because I don't need it. That's what extrude manifold does. We went over that in a tutorial series, so that should be at least somewhat familiar to you guys. All right, and you'll notice what also happened with extrude manifold is we don't have, it didn't break up this trim here, right? And I'll show you what I mean. Let me back up there a little bit more. Oh, that is the trim. Okay, so we're going to grab this door again, and this time I'm just going to E to extrude. I'm going to pull that in. All right, now you see what I mean by breaking up the trim. Now this trim is a separate piece. See this line that goes up here, right? So that's keeping our trim separate. So it's up to you what you want. If you want to give, say you want this trim to be like white, but you want the inner piece to be something different, like a bare wood or something like that, it's kind of up to you, right? Because a trim realistically is only roughly this thick, right? It's just trim. It's not a solid piece, but it depends on the circumstances, right? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Now, I tend to keep mine this way, and then as I go later on, I can make up my mind. If I don't want it that way, I can just delete that extra line and make it one solid piece, which does come in handy depending on what you're doing, what your intentions are as far as texturing. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is the windows. Now, we'll go into the house here and we'll look at how the windows are set up. And it looks like just a regular split window. Okay, they have a screen door on here. Sometimes I do the screen door, sometimes I don't. It all depends. Now, this front window is just a bay window, so we're not going to have to do anything special with that. The trim work is generally good enough. Now, it does look like some of these windows have maybe a bit of a sill on the bottom. Well, these don't. All right, so we're going to skip any kind of windowsill. All right, and we're gonna split up these windows here. So we'll go into face select and we'll select the windows that we're going to split. You know what? This window here was a double, wasn't it? Which means I didn't really want trim on the whole thing. That's all right. It is now going to be, now going to be a bay window. I guess I could step back far enough that I could just, redo that and turn that into a double, but that's fine. I think, a bay window will be fine. I was thinking about splitting this one vertically though. And this way it'll be like a giant window that you just slide open left and right. All right. So once we have those selected, I am going to right click and I am going to S to subdivide. And then I'm going to go through and get rid of the lines that I don't need. All right. So get rid of these, get rid of these. Oops. All right. And you could also hit Alt, like Shift and Alt, and it'll select the whole line like so. So you don't have to select them individually. All right. Like that. Ooh, I missed the window. Okay. Right click, dissolve. And then we'll do the same thing for this window here since I missed it. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the bottom half of each of these windows. Like so. Let's not miss the last one that we previously missed. All right. So like I said, I'm going to get myself into an angle where I can see. It's just a point of reference so I can see. I'm a better judge of how far I'm pushing that window in. So again, we're going to extrude along normals, and I am going to pull that in like so, about the width of a window. I could have maybe went a hair deeper. Let's try that one more time. Let's extrude. I don't want to go too deep. All right. So like that. All right. Now we're going to leave those highlighted and make sure I'm in face select. And I'm just going to come through and I'm going to pick the rest of the faces here. Okay. Like that. All right. And we are going to inset once again. We're going to use I. Now with inset, you see how these are going individually? If you're trying it and it's insetting as a whole, like the whole entire window is going, you can hit I again. That's how you break it down, right? And that's something that we went over into the tutorial, right? So if you have 4 squares that you have highlighted, 4 faces, and you're trying to inset them individually, but it's only insetting as a giant square, hit I a second time, and that will break it down into 4 individual squares. All right, just in case you run into that problem there. All right, so now that we have those pulled in, that's kind of the frame of the window there. Again, I'm going to get myself a little bit closer, and I'm going to extrude along normals, and I'm going to pull that in about yay far. All right, now that's it. Those are, our windows are done. It's a nice split level window where you can push up, down, This being a bay window, we're not going to do anything. And with this split window, we can do the same thing here, except this just gets done a little bit differently. We'll push in one side of it. I'll just hit E to extrude since I don't have to go along normals on this one. All right, select the other one, inset, like so. And again, we'll extrude inward, like so. All right. So far, so good. Okay. With this window, even though it's a bay window, I think I might push that in a little bit further just to give it a little bit of depth. Okay, like that. And then the doors, I'm going to do the same thing. Now, like I said, there's a screen door on this one. Now it's going to be up to you. This is going to be, a personal choice of whether or not you want to add that screen door. Six of one, half dozen of the other. That's the way I look at that one, right? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's just again, you're introducing, more faces to your mesh. More geometry, which it's really not much, but again, it's up to you. It's just more work in the long run. Okay, so let's see if there's anything fancy about that door, anything special we need to take note of. No, not really. It's a solid door, so there's no windows or anything like that we need to worry about. Now with the garage and stuff like that, I'm not really worried about like handles, like any handles on the garage door. I'm not worried about like the individual panels or anything like that. That's all something that's going to come out in the wash when we texture it, right? We're going to use textures to put all of those lines in there. It'll mostly be like normals. Our normal map will take care of that for us. All right. And then with the door, since there's no window, it's just going to be a solid door. I could probably just add a doorknob at this point, and I think I could be okay. All right. So that's one thing that you need to do as you're moving along here and you're building all of this up is you need to be thinking a few steps ahead, or at least far enough ahead into texturing to at least have an idea of how you want to texture these things, right? So you might do things, build things differently depending on the textures that you plan to use, right? So maybe, I'm not sure what would be a good example, but like this garage door, I know this is broken down in individual panels. Now, maybe I knew I didn't have a texture that could do that, or maybe there's just some sort of limitations on the texturing end. Then I might build in the additional panels. All right. But I do know that I have a way to do that in Substance Painter that I'm not really going to have to worry about that. All right. So for now, I'm just going to give this a doorknob. And then if I need to, we can break this down. You have options, right? So sometimes the doors, you can see doors that have, maybe there's a couple smaller panels down here that are maybe sunken in a little bit. Sorry, doing this with my mouse really isn't ideal. You'll have something like that, and these will be sunken in a little bit. Sometimes there's, a top window up here that you can push in a little bit, and then, with the doorknob, and you're good to go. All right. In this case, I don't really think we need all of that. Like, it's a solid door in the picture. Sometimes I'll just do the screen door itself, and then let me have a look at the screen door and see. All right. Yeah, I think we're just going to do a solid door, and that'll be the end of it. Just a lot easier. Let's just give it a doorknob. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, the 3D cursor here, right? Right there. Our origin point is connected to that cursor at this point, and I'm going to move it right here because I'm going to introduce a new object, right? So I'm going to shift and I'm going to right click. Okay. And to put that cursor right where I want that doorknob to be. All right. Now I'm going to shift A, and I'm going to make, I'm not going to give anything. I'm going to make a circle. Okay. So we'll take that circle there. Now, before you do anything else, you want to select the number of vertices, and I'm going to go with 12. All right. So you don't need all 32 vertices. All right. Now we're going to spin this 90 degrees on the Y axis. So we're going to rotate Y 90 degrees. And then I'm going to scale this down a little bit to be about the size of what I think my doorknob should be. Or this is a backing plate is what this is going to be of the doorknob. This is not going to be the doorknob itself. All right. So like so. Then we'll go in 2 for a edge select. And I am going to extrude that along the x-axis, pull that out a little bit, and then I'm going to use ES. So I'm going to go to extrude and scale right away. So it's just E and then S, and I'm going to pull that in. And this is going to be, I don't know what you would call it, like the shaft for the doorknob. So E again along the x-axis, pull that out a little bit like so. And then one more time, we'll E and an S. And we'll pull that out. That. And then we'll extrude along the X axis one more time, like that. And then we'll scale this out. Give it like a taper, like so, and F to fill. Okay, that is your doorknob. Now, if you did it, let me get rid of this cursor. Right. So if you got your doorknob done and it's a little too big, it's a little too small, you're not really crazy about the way that it turned out. All right. Just go in here, select your entire doorknob, and you can move it if you need to. Right. So you can move it along the Y axis a little bit. You can move it up and down, or you can scale it if need be. All right. So it's not a big deal if it turned out too big, too small, too something, not to your liking. It can be scaled and it can be moved. So not that big of a deal. All right. And we are going to do the same thing on the back door. This back door looks skinnier than the front door. Uh, One thing I don't do is I always make my doors a standard height, but never a standard width. And I think I need to start doing that because a lot of my objects, my deco objects that I put in game, I seem to have a little bit of a problem getting in and out of my doors. And I'm not so sure it's the height as much as it is the width. Right? I have to wiggle a little bit to get through the door. And I think that may be it. So that's something I may start doing is making my doors a standard width as well. Since they were always deco objects, I never really worried about it. I just eyeballed it. And as long as it looked good, that's good enough for me because I wasn't actually going in and out of the door, but I'm creating a habit, right? So when I make an object where I do go in and out of the door, I have that bad habit of just eyeballing it. And then, in game, I don't fit through the door. All right. So this one, since the back window or the back door, maybe we'll give this one a little bit of a window. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and subdivide it again. And we're going to delete those verticals. We'll move this up along the Z axis about there. And then we'll do that one more time. Subdivide it. Get rid of those. And then we'll move that up right about there. And maybe a little bit lower. Yeah, somewhere in there. All right. And then I'm going to Control R for a loop cut. And I'm going to scale that along the Y axis. I'm going to pull that out about yay far. Deselect the ones that I want to keep. Right click, dissolve the rest. All right. So that's going to be the window. We'll select that. And we will push that in a little bit. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that. Really loud car just went by up the street. I guess the guy felt like the entire neighborhood needed to hear his awesome stereo. I have no clue what was playing, but yeah, I don't want to pick on any genres or any nationalities, but it's usually a very specific type of music that's blaring as you go up the street. Anyhow, moving on. So another doorknob. Let's make another doorknob back here. We'll right click or shift right click. All right. So I can tell that this doorknob's going to be maybe not exactly where I want it, but that's okay. So again, we're going to shift A. We're going to go into a circle. It's already set for 12 vertices. So we're going to rotate that on the Y axis 90 degrees. Scale that down a little bit more. Yeah, that should look pretty good. 2 for edge select. Actually, that looks a little bit big. Scale it down a little bit more. All right. And now we'll extrude that along the X axis. Okay. ES to bring that in. Oops. See, that's what I mean about, I love the Control Z, or I could just go back and select that cursor out of my way. I can go back and reselect something that I clicked off of. EX, bring that out a little bit. Alrighty, ES. So it goes pretty quick. Once you get the hang of, what you need to do, if it's extruding along the X axis or extruding along the Z axis or extruding and then scaling, things tend to pick up pretty quick. It goes a lot faster. All right. So with these doorknobs, everything is in the distance, right? It's only a deco object, so you're a little further away from the house. So it's not that critical, that it have like 32. You got to start with a circle of 32 vertices, and it can be a little rough around the edges, right? No big deal. Nobody's really going to notice these things. And you do need to save on your geometry as you go, right? You can't, getting all crazy with things. And, I used to do doorknobs where I used to make a complete sphere and then I would flatten that sphere down. And holy heck, I mean, I bet you that thing it had so many vertices. I can't even imagine. Some of my older models, I actually went through and I deleted those parts of it. What I want to do here, I think, is let me subdivide this. Probably not. Yeah, it does. I am actually going to give this a little bit of an upper window. All right, so I'm going to delete that. Move that up a little bit. Kind of the same thing I did with the back window, except I'm going to make it just a skinnier window. Right. Let's pick these. Move this up. Yeah, it's just going to be a really small window. All right, Control R for my loop cut. All right, and we'll scale that along the y-axis. Does that look good? Yeah, just one little window right up top there. Nothing fancy. Now you could give this a little bit of a trim if you want to, or you can just push it. Oops, I didn't want to inset. Extrude. All right, push that in a little bit. Okay, so that's that. Windows are done. What else do we have here? All right, that looks pretty good. Our foundation, let's start moving this foundation. We at least need to lay that out because we're going to texture that one a little bit differently. So, okay. This is probably something that I should have done previously. I should have ran this all the way across because now when I do it, I'll show you what's going to happen here. All right, we'll run that along the X. So, and then again along the Y. So, back half intake. All right, see, it's going to make that line on the porch there. That's all right, though. I'll show you what's going to go on here. All right, so we'll enter that. Now, I do need to start going and getting rid of some of these. All I'm doing now is just these extra lines that I don't need here. Oops. Is I'm going through and dissolving these. Man, what am I doing here? Ay, ay, ay. And like I said, this is just going to be the foundation. This is going to be some sort of like concrete material, something along those lines. All right. So what happened now is it runs right across everything. This is why I should have done this first, because you have like this. You can see it ran directly across. I didn't select anything on that side. Ran directly across like this trim and everything. So I have to come through and delete that stuff that I ran right across. Same with this trim here. Actually, it was only side of it, so it's not too bad. But I do need to run this again, so sometimes what I'll do is I'll run it like that, where I'll run it across, except I'll right click to kind of interrupt it, and then I'll start it again. All right, now sometimes you get this where the faces, the knife tool won't take. And it all depends on the geometry. What's going on with the geometry? Like you might have to fight with it and fight with it. Sometimes you might actually have to hide elements in front of it or try it from the backside, right? If you got a knife tool that's it's just not going, it will not take what you want it to. Try it from the backside, right? It's a lot easier. You don't have anything in the way and it should pick up a whole lot easier. All right. But that's it. So that's our foundation. Oops. That did not dissolve, did it? Okay. So our foundation's ready to go. All right. Some of these lines we're no longer going to need. Now I don't dissolve every single line, right? I'll at least try to keep things to the point where they're somewhat square, right? So I don't need any like n-gons or anything like that, just simple polygons, because it can create a bit of an issue when you're texturing, right? And I can show you at some point what exactly is going to happen. I'm sure it'll happen when we're texturing. Like for example, if you look at here is the normal. This point here is the normal for this whole entire square. That shouldn't be high up like that. That should be a little bit lower, dead center in the middle of this face, right? And the fact that it's not dead center, like same thing with this up here, right? You can see how that sits a little bit down to the lower left. That could create an issue, right? Because when it triangulates, it uses this point here, right? So it all depends on the face itself. And what you may need to do to fix this, right, is to go back. And this is probably because I deleted these edges here. That's exactly the reason that this happened is I would take the knife tool, right, and maybe like split that vertically. Okay. Now you can see that this one is nice and centered perfectly where it should be. Now this one's still a little bit off. So you may need to do that a second time, right? You may need to go through and use the knife tool again and maybe like subdivide it. Now, like I said, I know a few things about Blender, but I'm not a guru. So maybe there are better ways to do this, right? To keep that from happening, because that certainly will create. Now, it's not 100% guarantee, but if I run into issues while texturing, that's likely to be the issue. Now, this is just with Substance Painter. If you're texturing using base game textures, right, just doing it the easy way, or I don't want to call it the easy way, but you don't really have to unwrap anything. You're not relying on those faces, the way you would be. You're not relying on the geometry as much as you would for Substance Painter or something like that. There's a very distinct difference between the two when it comes to texturing. All right. So this is why I think I said it a while back that, texturing for Substance Painter, your geometry needs to be pretty good, right? Your UV unwrapping needs to be a really good job. And you have to do a really good job with your geometry. Any inconsistencies, like I had just pointed out, will create a problem somewhere along the line. All right. So this is very simple. Windows, doors, those look pretty well done. Let me think here. Do we need anything else on there? Probably not. That looks pretty good, I would think. All right. So anything else? Let's have a look at the main picture here. Let's see if there's any kind of chimneys or roof features that we need to add. I don't see any. Now, again, like I said, you can take liberties. Just because you don't see it in the picture doesn't mean you can't add it. If you feel like your house needs a chimney, then damn it, give it a chimney. It's that easy, right? Let's see. We got this back roof. I guess we can move on to that if we need to. Wow. Why does that stick out? Something definitely changed. Because the last time with this roof here, all I did was duplicate this, move it up, and separate it. So this house had definitely got rescaled at some point. All right. I'm actually going to delete this back roof. I just don't want to fuss with having to get that back into place. I'll just do it again. All right. So I'll shift D, move that on the Z axis. So, and then I'm going to separate my selection here. Okay. And it's caps lock. Well, no big deal. All right. Back into edit mode. Now, I don't know if I want this roof to come straight out, or I probably want it slanted, but there's some things I want to do first here. So let's select the roof. It wouldn't let me subdivide. Why? Control Z. Oops, didn't want to do that either. Let's select normals. All right, so that's why it wouldn't let me subdivide, is because of these right here. I'm just going to go through and dissolve those vertices. All right, easy enough. Face select, subdivide. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this. Oops, darn it. And I am not doing so good here. I'm going to move this G, and I'm going to move it along the X axis. Trying to think here. I'm going to use this as, it's going to be a column, but I don't think I want my column to sit. Let's do this one more time. I don't want it to sit right at the very edge. I'll show you what I mean. Oops, deleted the wrong ones. That along the X axis. Now this isn't something that I typically do. I'm just kind of winging this one as I go. Just sort of, because I know I want two columns here, so I'm just trying to figure out the easiest way to make them, without having to introduce like a whole new object. Like, what did I do there? Did I scale that? See, it's just talking, and I guess I can't multitask as well as I thought I could. But like I was saying, I know that I need two columns, and I don't want to have to like shift A, bring in another cube, and all that stuff. I'll figure out, a different way to do it using the geometry that I already have. All right. So back up here, I'm going to loop cut this like that. And I am going to scale that on the Y axis. I'm just going to bring it out close to the edge, kind of like that. And I'm going to do that one more time. Two cuts, scale it along the Y axis. All right. So the whole thing that I was after there, all right, let me look at the way our faces are. All right, this roof is going to need a little bit of thickness to it, obviously, before I go much, much further. Our doorknobs, my doorknobs always turn inside out for some reason. It's just the way the faces went. I have to see, like this one was okay, but the front one is not. So before I get too much further here, what I like to do is select these objects and fix them before I get too far ahead of myself. Oh, I'm not even on the right object. Now let's just select that doorknob. Okay, now the same thing with flipping the faces, right? I have mine mapped to Shift Alternate F. I believe, oh man, how do you do this without it? I've had it mapped that way for so long, I can't remember how to do it without it. Is it Alternate N, I think? Yep, Alternate N brings up your normals. And then once you have it selected, you can F right here where it says flip normals. Now you may be able to, somewhere up here under faces, there may be something up here for flipping. You'll have to look through the menus, but basically you want to flip your normals. So the same thing that I did with the alternate X with showing the, I don't want that. The same thing I did with showing the direction of the normals. You can do the same thing here. So hit alternate N, go up to F here. Now this says Shift Alternate F. Maybe I didn't do that. Maybe that's already a shortcut that's in there. right? But you can give it your own shortcut by right clicking on it and then either adding it to your quick menu or just, giving it a shortcut, right? So Shift Alternate F, I'm not sure if I did that or if it came that way. You might have to double check that one. In your quick menu, by the way, when you add things to your quick menu, just pressing Q brings up your quick menu, right? So with mine, I only have Unwrap Me and Clear Seamer in there. But it does get used. It gets used, enough. All right. So alternate F, I can see that I have to fix this piece in here as well. And then we'll just select those. And again, Shift Alternate F fixes that. Okay. So now the roof, we're back to the roof. This doorknob. Oops. Yeah, doorknob's okay. All right. The roof, we'll just give that a little bit of thickness before we go much further. So let's grab the roof. Let's select the whole thing. Should have done this before. Yeah, I definitely should have done this before I marked all that out. Gonna make things kind of a pain in the butt. I want to do this. We can just try extruding it down. See, the problem here is that all of those lines go with it. Now, I don't need the lines on the top half, so it's not a big deal to just, grab these top lines. I got to watch. I think I grabbed the bottom too. Yep. All right, let me start with what I want to do first. And then from there, I'll fix what needs fixing. Oh boy, there's definitely things that need fixing. All right, go back into face select, grab that whole thing, Shift Alternate F. That's why I said it pays to have, this up here, this face orientation. It pays to remap that to a button that you can check really quickly if you need to, right? Because you're going to want to do it often. Now, in my early days, which wasn't that long, it wasn't that long ago, to be honest, I would do an entire model and completely forget to check, the directions of my normals. And oh my God, what a mess. It was just, yeah, I'd have to come back and fix like a lot. All right, so I'm going to bring this down to, we're already on face project, so I don't really need to do anything with that. I'm debating if I want to, let's see. I wonder if I can ES right away. No, I can't do that with two of them. So what I was going to do is just, I'm going to pull this down. Those are going to be the legs, for my porch there. What I thought about doing is kind of tapering them a little bit, maybe make the bottom a little bit thicker than the top. Let's try, but I have to do that individually. So if you how we did E and an S right away instead of inset, now that's one of the things we can do, right? So we can pull this down a little bit, like say maybe like that far. I'm not sure I really want to do this. And then we could inset that a little bit. Now inset would work individually. Instead of using ES, we can just inset them. Because if you try ES on two objects at the same time like this, it's going to scale them in towards each other. Really hard to explain, but if you try it, like here, watch, if you do ES, see how that works? They kind of go in towards each other, and you don't really want to do that. All right, so now we can bring this down a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad, I guess, right? Oops. Get that into, I just want a better angle so I can see what I'm doing here. So let's bring that down. All right, now the only problem here is that inset is not going to work anymore. I mean, it'll work, but I don't want to go further in. I want to come back out again, and that's where I would use ES. All right, so what I would do here is I would do them individually, but I would take note of how far I'm scaling, right? So I would ES, pull that out, and 1.284. And I mean, I don't want to do all of these. Let's see. All right. We'll just make it 1.3 so it's something easy to remember. Then we'll extrude that down towards the bottom. Yeah, I guess. All right. So well, then we have to do the same thing here. So we'll ES, and then we'll just type in 1.3, and then we'll extrude that down to the bottom. Okay. So now we can go back up top and start getting rid of some of these extra lines here. Actually, let's use Alt. This way it'll select the entire loop. It select the top and bottom. Right click dissolve. Now always come up and check, like after you do that, sort of check things out to make sure you didn't get any unwanted, uh, I guess, results, you could say. Because sometimes maybe you had an edge selected that you didn't realize, or maybe something else relied on an edge that you just dissolved. And you may have like warped something didn't look quite right. And in the end, you might not notice it until later on. And I've done this. Now all of a sudden you have something that you need to fix, and it's just not so good. And I also just realized that I wanted to slant this roof. So now, what are my options there now? Okay, so let's try. Uh, do I really want to slant it that much? Now that everything is done, I don't know if I really want to go through all this. Let's go into face select here. Okay. What I'm going to try and do, maybe I'll just see if I can move that up a little bit. So it's a little slanted. Whole lot. What I really would have liked to done is move this front half down. But that is not going to work anymore. I mean, back half worked. I can move the whole thing. Like if I select that, but you'll see what's about to happen there. See that? That's not exactly what we wanted. What you could do from here, if you really wanted to, is select just these bottom pieces. And then we could G, Z. All right. We'll do that. Any little bit that sticks out through the bottom, I'm not overly worried about because you're not going to see that when this thing is laying down. Now, speaking of which, this patio here, right? So you could give that a little bit of thickness if you want. You can kind of drag that down. Now, you just created kind of like an empty bowl, so you're going to have to fill this in again. The reason that I do that sometimes is it's a lot easier when you're working with your terrain texture tool in the editor, in Giants editor. If this is completely flat, it's just a lot easier when you have some thickness to it, right? Because maybe your terrain's a little bit lower over here, a little bit higher over here. So now what I tend to do is first let's check. Yeah, the edges all need to be fixed. Of course they do. Because and the reason for this is because I pulled it down. If I had pulled it up in the direction of the normal, I wouldn't have this issue, right? I wouldn't have to worry about this. But I didn't want to pull it up because obviously, I have the bottom of the trim and stuff like that I'm going to start running into, and I can't do that, right? So let's shift alternate F, get rid of that. All right, and then all I'm really going to do here is I'm going to go into, first I'm going to get rid of that blue color because it's distracting. So I'm just going to select the four corners here, these four vertices on each corner. All right, and then I'm going to F to fill that. And then I'm going to check the orientation, and I'm going to come through and I'm just going to delete that bottom right away. So face select. All right. And in this way, your patio has a little bit of thickness, and you can see it sticks down further than the rest of the house, which is not a big deal because this is the level you're ultimately shooting for, right? This line here, right? So these should all be that's where your house is going to sit. That's the level you're shooting for. But like I said, for whatever reason, if your terrain is a little uneven in the back here, this will help hide some of the gaps. Now you could argue that it's extra geometry that you don't need. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Not that big of a deal. But I can't say I had a lot of issues with it. But here and there, I've run into a problem or two. Like, so you take this driveway would be another example. So if you wanted to, you can extrude that out, and give yourself a driveway just by selecting that edge. Now I don't know on the picture. Yeah, there is a driveway there, and there's even a sidewalk. So if you wanted, you could rebuild that sidewalk as well. All right, so you don't, you're not limited by what you need to do. It's actually this face here can go. It's just use your imagination. If you want something in there, then put it in there. There's nothing saying you can't put it in there. I've actually, oh man, I'm making a mess of that. Oh yeah, yeah. I think I just deleted that entire side. Oh, Bauer, why do you do these things? Delete vertice. Feel like I'm just making a lot more work for myself. What I'm gonna do is just grab these again, just like I did on the other side. I'm gonna fill that. Now, if I wanted to, I can come through here, grab. Oh, I can't grab that. That's two separate pieces. That's interesting. Hmm. I could use a knife tool and cut that if I wanted to, if it really bothered me that much. Can't see it. Not that big of a deal. So I'm not going to let it bother me. And this is why I mean that this railing, that I feel like I should have moved that in just a little bit further, or I could have textured that. Let me back up again, back up to where I was before I deleted that. There we go. Like I could texture that the same as the rest of the steps, which I guess it might be okay. Because what I could do also is grab just this edge and extrude it out along the x-axis, and I could use that as part of a sidewalk. Right. So maybe you want to have a sidewalk that comes out as far as the driveway does. Maybe that sidewalk comes out to the street. Now, the thing with these models in driveways and sidewalks, what I used to do is I would take the sidewalk and the driveway and I would separate them, right? And I would make them their own object. So this way, when you went into when you brought it into the editor, say somebody else is going to use your model, maybe they want their house to sit a lot closer to the street, and it's not going to do. Now your house isn't going to work for them because your driveway is going to stick out into the street. So by separating them and making them separate objects, you're giving the end user, the option to hide that driveway, either use it or not use it. If they want it there, they can have it. If they don't, and with it being a separate object, they can scale it. So maybe they can stretch that driveway out or shrink it to fit their needs, right? So these are things that you need to think of. You need to think ahead a little bit, when you're working on these objects. I've actually made my own objects where, I got into the map. I'm like, damn it, should have done that a lot differently. But this is how you learn, right? You learn from your mistakes. All right, so let's go into edge select here. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I should have, because I was just on the back patio and I'm still not finished back there. I had, I don't know, maybe my, not OCD, I don't know what I want to call it. Scatterbrain. That's what it is. My scatterbrain keeps jumping me all over the place. I think I had something I wanted to point out and it took me down the rabbit hole. All right, so we still have a railing that we need to build here. Um, Porch is nice and slanted like I want it. Now, again, thinking again to the textures, right? So let me go select the porch. The top is going to be maybe like some kind of corrugated material, like a corrugated roof. Now, since I can't see it in my image, I'm just going to have to work this one out on my own. But your bottom is looking completely flat at this point. And do you need it completely flat or even want it completely flat is the question. What I normally do is I try to, not sure if that's going to work in this instant. Maybe it will. So let's try. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the knife tool only because I don't think I can subdivide this anymore. Can I? No, I cannot. All right. So I'm going to take the knife tool and I'm going to run something along the y-axis like that. Okay. And I'm going to grab that edge there. I'm going to pull that in the same distance, maybe as these other two lines that I have on the other side, the other two edges. I'll move that along the x-axis. Oh, so you can see it's not working out too good there. Can't do that. I either have to put that in place, see what's happening. Watch when I try to move that. I can use GG, which is a slide tool. See, what's happening is when I'm trying to move that, because the roof is slanted, right? So that I just kind of screwed myself there, right? So when I try to move this along the x-axis, I'm moving it completely straight. I'm not going with the slope of the roof anymore. So you could either GG, which is a slide tool, which in this case is actually going to work out for us. Go figure, right? I just want to bring it in something like that because what I'm going to do is I'm going to recess that roof just a tiny bit. So this will look like some kind of like maybe a wooden frame on the outside. And then the inside could be a little bit of a different texture, or it could just be stepped down. So like maybe this is like a 2x12 or something like that, right? That they put up there. Let me move that a little bit more. All right, maybe something like that. Now I'm going to try that again. I'm going to do one more up here along the top, I guess. So I'm going to create knife tool, y-axis, like so. Make that permanent, select it, GG, and that GG, obviously, is just tapping G twice in succession really fast. All right, so now I can grab this face here. I think I was extruding. Oh my God. I hit things. Sometimes, like I said, it's part of it is because I'm trying to record and do that at the same time. Normally, I'm just going. Oh, yes, somehow I did something up here, which I don't remember doing. There we go. Just had to back myself up. So if something did happen, you got to watch that. I do that a lot where something will happen and I don't take notice of something until much later. I'm like, what the hell happened there? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recess this a little bit, but I can't just extrude, right? Because remember, extruding is going to go straight up, right? So there is no direction of the faces or anything like that. And if it goes straight up, it's not going to look right because our roof is on an angle. So again, what we need to do is right click and then F for extrude faces along normals. And then we can pull that up a little bit and it's not going to look weird. All right, like so. And then the only thing we really did there is now I have the option of separating this, right? So this outer part can be like maybe like I said, maybe like a 2x12, some kind of different material. And this top can be whatever I want it to be, right? Maybe I want something a little bit different on there. All right. So all in all, that patio roof, yeah, I would say is good enough. All right. Now, these are the things you're going to do. You're going to start with, the little things like we did. We lay everything out and then we start coming in, we put trim in, and then maybe you'll pull a sidewalk out. So as you go, you're going to be refining it little by little by little by little. You're going to be adding some more things into it, right? Just kind of tweaking things and perfecting things to your liking. Now, you don't want to get carried away. You don't want to get too out of hand with things, but you want things to look nice. So it all starts somewhere. Let me check my time here really quick. Okay, so it looks like we're approaching an hour, which is, and that went really, really quick. Uh, and what do I want to do? There's not too much more that I want to do. We got a railing to do. I got a tiny bit of work I want to do onto this porch here. And then I guess maybe from there we can maybe start unwrapping, right? Because I don't want to get too crazy. All right, so let's do that. Let's leave it there. You have some things to look forward to the next video. Remember, like and subscribe. That would help me, it would help you, and then we could all be one happy family. Anyhow, yeah, that's it. Leave it there. I'll try to get the next video out as soon as I can. And with that being said, I'm Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.